I represent a very rural district in Missouri, south of Kansas City, over the Lake of the Ozarks, 24 beautiful counties, a lot of farmers. And when I go out and speak to folks, and yes, I still do town hall stops, they want to know, why are we spending taxpayer money to go back to the moon and on to Mars? So I want my constituents to hear from you directly to help me answer that question. I know the answer to that question, but can you tell the good folks of Missouri's 4th Congressional District why we are doing this?
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
And before we get into Jared Issacman's answer on that, I did want to ask our own crew of tomorrow, can you tell the good folks of Missouri's 4th Congressional District why space is important? So I'll hand it over to the crew.
Who wants to go first?
Who's
gonna chomp first?
Ryan, you spoke first. Ryan?
I'll bite first.
Yeah.
The way I'd answer that question is, we are a peoples of explorers. You know, if people never crossed the Atlantic hundreds of years ago, the United States of America as we know it simply wouldn't exist. The entire concept of exploration is embedded within what a human being is, and space is just the next step, the natural evolution of our exploration of a species. You know, if you want to go so far back, you know, why should we leave caves in the first place? They're warm, they're dry, you know, they're rather convenient for not dying in the dark of night. But we ventured out of the caves, we explored, we went beyond the hill, we went beyond the river, we went beyond the ocean, and now we're just going beyond the planet. It's just a natural next step to what we have been doing already as a species for thousands upon thousands of years.
I'm sure the farmers in Missouri are very interested in what the species are doing for the next 1,000 years. Jared, how would you tell the farmers of Missouri, the good folks in Missouri's 4th Congressional District, why space is important? Remember, farmers, right?
Yes.
These are guys who don't really care about space, generally speaking. Like,
folks who are part of the truly the breadbasket of America. So, like people who are putting in a genuine hard day's work and other things like that. And many things that go into the hard day's work of the folks in the 4th Congressional District of Missouri, I'm sure, actually are assisted by data from NASA missions. A satellite is an incredible platform to put an instrument on. It is, you can't beat that. Simply because of the swath of the Earth that you are able to study in one orbit. You know, you could cover multiple states in a 10-minute pass, as opposed to an aircraft, which an airplane can probably do like 15 to 20 minutes. Like a city in that kind of a pass and other things. So it is a potent system for that. So with everything that goes into farming, where you have to understand things like soil moisture and heat and other things coming off of your crops, and pest management and other things like that. There is no platform quite like an orbital platform that allows you to do that. And there are a multitude of missions that NASA does that provides that data. There are also collaborative missions from other agencies like the European Space Agency and the Indian Space Research Organization that also provide that data as well. So space is unbelievably important in just about every decision you make as a farmer, because that data, most of the data you're going to be working with is actually coming from a NASA satellite. So, surprise, we actually go off Earth in order to benefit the Earth. Seems very counterintuitive, but that's the way it works.
All right. By the way, I didn't want to imply that Ryan's answer was bad or wrong. It was a good answer, but I just, the farmers in Missouri's fourth congressional district, I don't think
Easy
are
for you to
Easy for you
related
to say.
to our. I know, right? To our the things that make us inspired. Dada, why would the good folks of Missouri's fourth congressional district? mm, Uh,
Mm,
why should space be important to them? The farmers,
uh,
yep.
my standard answer to this question is always goes back to Ernst Stullinger's 1970 letter to Sister Mary Jacunda about why I spend money on going into space. But we've heard that before, and it's a long letter that I don't have time to read now. But I would say, in order to relate it to the farmers in uh, Missouri's fourth congressional district, yeah, the research and the technology that we gain from going to space allows us to improve the margins on being able to effectively grow all of the crops that they are normally concerned with. Margins being tighter on water usage, on profits, on seed yield than they've ever been before. Doing the research can improve those margins and improve yield more than they've ever been able to do before. Like Jared mentioned, the understanding the moisture content in the soil, or even the CO2 or nitrogen content of the soil from space, from a satellite. What if you could envision exactly what uh, fertilizer and herbicides and pesticides that your crops need in order to be able to get the maximum possible yield from that soil, from that field, for your particular crop? Yeah, you've been doing this for a long time, and I'm sure you're really good at your job, but there's things that you just can't see. And with science and with the development of technologies like that and going into space, we can improve that yield and make those margins better, not only for the crops that they're making, but for the companies, the farmers that are making it for us. And I would add to that the discoveries that we need to make in order to put people on the moon and on Mars can lead to more efficient crops and more efficient use of the materials and resources that we have here, because we need to take them to space, and we can't take an entire crop, an entire field.
All right, let's see what Jared Issacman had to say in response to that exact same question.
You know, the 1960s, we did the near impossible. I mean, in a time we knew so little, to send Neil and Buzz to the surface of the moon and bring them back safely, it sent a message to the world of what we are capable of doing as a nation. And I think that there's just the sheer amount of technology that we learned from that, not to mention the inspiration. I can't tell you how many engineers, scientists, rocket scientists, astronauts, pilots right now chose those career paths that are so important for our own national security because of moments just like that. Now, when the president gave his inspiring vision to return astronauts to the moon, pick up where Apollo 17 left off, he said, don't go just back for the flags and footprints this time. Build a base, stay this time, and learn about its scientific potential, its economic potential. We may very well have a lunar economy someday, 3D printing AI satellites from regolith, mining helium-3. That economic potential is not something we want to find out the hard way by coming in second place. Not to mention, it is the technological proving ground for us to someday undertake an even more ambitious and inspiring mission to Mars. I would say that for all that we stand to learn, everything from a scientific perspective, and of course, the inspiration it has for the next generation to grow up and take us farther, it is a price worth paying. Now, there is a difference. In the 1960s, NASA was 4.5% of the discretionary budget. We're 0.25% now, and you have some of the wealthiest individuals in the world that are contributing their resources well in excess of what's under contract today to give a capability that's vitally important for national security, and I would say arguably for all of humankind. So the price that we're paying is a lot less, but what we stand to gain is so much more.
So, all right, We've lost data. Um, but before we continue on to the next area, and Jared, by the way, kudos, like you teed that up brilliantly for us. Thank you. It's gonna be great. Well, there were some great comments, and so the first one comes from Reason One Media says, I live in Missouri, and Ryan just lost all of NASA's funding.
There's a reason I'm not administrator of NASA. There's a reason I do the job that I do.
Let's see here. So Stan J7223, satellite imagery of their farms for crop intelligence. That's a good one. GPS for their tractors. Absolutely.
Yep.
Weather forecasting from
Yep.
ECA. I didn't actually know this. There's a reason John Deere has a partnership with SpaceX.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. And like, this is good. And I'm not going to say farmers aren't going to get on board with this, but like, you know, to Jared's point, like they do really hard work, but I think they are still like aspirational humans, right? So, you know, for thousands of years, the greatest driving force for technological advancement was war. Now, for the first time in human history, that driving force can be the peaceful exploration of space. I think they can get on board with that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, just with the aspirational aspects of it and things from my limited, truly city boy understanding of how farming works. It's not exactly an industry that you typically get into because you're ready to make gobs of money. So I think very interestingly, it and spaceflight can both shake hands with each other in that respect. So
Imagine if we could open up another market for your yield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, other places for what you grow and what you get at the end of your season to make work. So yeah, be pretty interesting.
all right, moving on to the next one. So, you know, Jared, you talked a bit about like how we can use satellites to help farmers with yield, and one of those satellites is Landsat. You know, we started the show by asking why rural farmers should support NASA, right? One of the benefits NASA provides them is this Landsat weather satellite in conjunction with the USGS. So here's a really quick clip of what Jared has to say about
So can you guarantee that a commercialization strategy will prevent any gaps in data and public access? And also, what is NASA's contingency plan if private capabilities are delayed or if they fail to meet the standards the public depend on for extreme weather and wildfire response?
Great question, Congresswoman. Thank you. I would say guaranteed NASA. It's we often undertake incredibly challenging endeavors. I would say I have extremely high confidence in our ability to deliver on this. And let me explain, ma'am. We currently have several Landsats that are still up there now, and they are doing great work. Landsat 10, which I believe, forgive me, is somewhere in the early 2030s is when we intend to launch that program right now. So you have existing satellites, plus you have the new Landsat 10 program. So we're talking now many, many years into the future when we should be giving consideration to that transition. And that's taking place now at a time when industry capabilities are maturing extremely fast. As I pointed out, 6 years ago, our only way into space was via the Russians. Now we're on NASA Crew 12. Artemis is launching. There's constellations of communication and observation satellites, not just Starlink. You have Blue Origin, Planet, Black Sky, and all of them have reached out to us and said, give us this mandate and we can incorporate these tools. Now we're proceeding carefully at it. We've put RFIs out to gather the data, but I'm quite confident by the time Landsat 10 or anywhere close to it is terminating that we have the capabilities from commercial providers.
I appreciate your confidence. We've spoken a lot on this committee over the years about public-private partnerships. I just want to emphasize the importance of
Yes,
public access to data, how critical that is.
And that was the only time that access to data was brought up. Like one of the really big critical things that I think Jared has actually championed on the show, where I will say we shouldn't be doing this in the public domain, it should be the private domain. They could do it faster, cheaper, better. And Jared always comes back with, yeah, but the data is free because taxpayers have paid for it and you don't want to have yet another subscription service. And I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. I'm also not wrong. So there's something, yeah, there's something in the middle there. But now NASA could be looking to defund science programs, right? Like that's so much science was in the defund list. Can we move our weather and Earth observation to the private sector and not have a negative impact on farmers and keep that data free? Jared? Defend your stance, Jared, that I put out there.
Okay, so first of all, I do want to point out that the Landsat program actually did have a privatization in the mid 80s, and it absolutely fell on its face because nobody ended up buying the data in mass like they were expecting it to. So like this is something that has been done and it didn't work. Now, could things be a bit different nowadays? I think you look at companies like Black Sky and Planet and everybody else that can like get you rapid data from orbit if you need it. Like you read like you've read an article about the Iran war lately, and you always see like a new photo from Planet or Black Sky satellite that's taken an image, 6 hours before the article was published. So. Like we may be at this point where the past privatization commercial failure of Landsat before it came back into the public sphere, that may be behind it. But also, like, that's, at least in the back of my head, like, still there. That's not particularly great. Also, during that era, the standardization and other things was not really kept up that well by the private companies that were operating at that time. So the data, like, there's gaps in it. There's a real big reduction in quality during that era. So it's just like not great, because after all, you were being driven not by getting the best data that you could for your customers. You were being driven by doing the best job that you could to generate profit for yourself, which sometimes it does yield you really good data. Sometimes, in the case of what happened with Landsat during its privatization, sure didn't. So it all kind of depends on that. Obviously, there would be a very dramatic price increase because right now Landsat data is free. So any sort of privatization or commercialization of that is going to immediately effectively increase the price by triple digit percentages, simply because right now there is no price for it. It's like up at Griffith Observatory, our telescope is free to look through, so we always tell people if you didn't enjoy it, your refund is real easy to get. So just walk on out. But there's also some other things that I didn't really think about until we finally locked in the show last night, is what we were talking about, which is that there's a soft power that comes from being able to have other countries come in and use your data from your satellites. And if you commercialize the Landsat program, you will probably have to deal with restrictions on what are going to be used. So then you can end up losing that soft power, that ability of your country to provide something that other countries may actually desire or go to you for. Because if you lose that ability to generate good data, high resolution data for what's needed for for working with land and other things like that, other countries may say, okay, cool, we're just going to go ahead and make our own satellite to do that, and we're just not going to we're not going to worry about your subpar stuff anymore. We're going to build our own instruments and things like that. So there's a lot of different aspects that can come from commercializing and privatizing that aren't so great in the end with things. And I feel like for the positives, Jamie, you might be able to speak a little bit better towards that than I can.
Of privatizing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you look at the space industry, when it was not privatized, when it was the large conglomerates working for NASA, we were stuck in low Earth orbit with extremely high costs and no innovation in the space whatsoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was just rehashing the same thing over and over and over again because there was no incentive to innovate. When the private industry came in, And it's a little bit of a misnomer, right? Because the big players that were doing this were private, but it was all being driven by government. And when a new business model came in that was truly private, of like, we're not getting paid unless we deliver, and you can help fund it or you don't, we're going to figure this out on our own. When truly private space actually started happening, we started to see innovation again. We started to see a cost reduction and a services increase because they were incentivized to make profit, right? Which means they need to figure out how to get those prices down and figure out how to get their available services up. And so when you do that, you end up with innovation once more. Now, it takes a minute to get there, right? Like,
Yes.
you look at SpaceX and Blue Origin, that did not happen overnight. In fact, it was
Oh, no.
arguably worse than the government offerings for many years until it wasn't. And then suddenly it was better. And then suddenly it was a lot better. And then it was faster. And then it was cheaper. And you need to allow a moment for that to happen. It does not happen overnight because private industry has to figure it out. And there's a kind of a give and take that happens there. Not everything works better in private industry, but I would argue most things do, as long as there's competition, as long as they're actually being forced to be competitive and not actually just a giant monopoly and they're the only ones who can provide service. Monopolies aren't really great for people or for society, right? Like competition is. So I think that would be the advantage, right? We look at like space weather and just Earth observation in general. We've got Starlink up there. We've got Amazon Leo going up there. China's got stuff going up. We've got these massively huge constellations. Why can we not, as standard de facto practice, start putting Earth observation payloads on these things so they're doing more than just bandwidth? They've got the bandwidth. So why can't they start sending down incredible Earth observation? I mean, they're looking to put AI data centers up there. Why can't we use these same orbital assets to do with Earth observation and weather predicting in real time in a way that we've never been able to see before? You're not going to see that through the government. You're just not.
Yeah. And there was actually something that's been brought up in the chat room that I forgot to bring up in my discussion about some of the not so great things with it, which is actually a comment from Rabdin Rashamar 00, which is that the chances that commercial entities will do honest climate science and freely share that with public and the world is basically zero. So there is sometimes, if you find that, the data does not agree with what you want to show, if you're in the science world, it's very difficult to hide that because you have to do the peer review. You have to drop it in front of everybody and say, this is what I found. But in the commercial world, we've seen really great examples of this not panning out particularly well. We've just with anthropogenic climate change, we're changing the climate whether you want to believe it or not. And boy, there are a multitude of companies that have put study after study out to try to trick you into thinking that we're not doing it. The classic one, cigarettes are good for you, right? So yeah, you got to be careful. You have to be really, really careful when a commercial or private entity comes in and starts handling that data, because then there's an aspect of it where you have to ask yourself, what is the lens that this is being delivered to me with? What could be the possible biases in the data that I'm getting right now?
I mean, I feel like you should always look at it, all data through that lens, always, regardless of where it comes from.
Yeah.
Right? Don't just blindly trust data. That's not a good idea.
Regardless of how the data is captured or collected, or what sensors or observation metrics they use to collect it, open access to everyone is essential. If it is private, they'll make it a subscription and they'll charge for it. If it's a big company, there will be a board and investors and profit margins that need to be maintained. So the price of your subscription, like Disney just up their pricing for Disney Plus, what are you going to do about it? You have no choice. You have no options. But if it's information that is open and accessible to everybody, you can actually build business models around that and use that as your tool for your unique process.
Yeah.
If it's a subscription model, somebody else has control.
Yeah, and you really don't know what the data is going to do as well. Like you don't know what the people are going to do with that data, and allowing that access allows people to kind of make their own decisions as to what's going to happen with the data. And people will surprise you with what they're going to do with the data, and it'll be people from all over the world. Like I use the European Space Agency's Sentinel data in their Sentinel browser that you can access online. I'm not a citizen of anywhere in Europe, right?
Hey,
I'm here
what are
in the
you doing
United
with our
States.
data?
Sorry, Ryan. Y'all
I
provided
paid
it for
that
free to
data,
me.
and you're just taking it.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. But yeah, I use it when I'm like doing backpacking or mountain climbing trips because Sentinel will detect where snow is and show the distribution of snow and the like thickness of it, how much snow is there, and other things like that. And then from that, we can literally plan our routes down to like 20 to like 20-meter segments as to how we want to go up the mountain, so that way we avoid snow or dense snow as much as we can. So like I'm not I didn't pay for that, and yet I'm getting a really big benefit out of it, and that's great. I want us to do that for just about as much as we can, you know?
Yeah, I am pro moving things into the private sector, obviously. I am also of the mindset that you have to learn from your previous mistakes or you're doomed to repeat them. And so if we try to do this with Landsat already, doing exactly the same thing is probably a bad idea. Probably a bad idea.
There's something to be said for that as well, is if you privatize, the private company is the one learning those lessons. And maybe they're not visible or clear to people outside. So the next time you try to do it in a different vein because one private entity failed, the other private entity that tries to pick that up is going to have to learn the same lessons from scratch. So why are we spending twice the money to learn the same lesson twice? If it's something that you're trying to use as a contribution to society, the private industry can accomplish it, but with standards and guidelines from government entities being held responsible for producing to government entities. Is that not a viable path?
There's this general assumption that there's only one, that you're always going to get screwed by a business, or like, look, they have to make profit. There's nothing wrong with making profit. There just isn't. There's also services that you probably use today that you're not really paying for that are not public data sets. I'm going to make some assumptions. I know you're going to jump down my throat on this one. But like, let me. I know exactly where you're going to go. But Google Maps, right? Okay, now I know satellite data. Yes, free data. I know. But inside of Google Maps is traffic data. To the best of my knowledge, that traffic data is being gathered by Google on their own platform and delivered to you for free, so you can get a better route. Like, I don't think
not free.
Okay, well, they're not incorporating ads against that data, as far as I know.
No,
So-
but you are. If it's free, you are the product.
Sure. Okay.
There's-
Cool. But hang on,
there's-
sir. Okay. So fine. Like, sure. But
There's ads in Google Maps. Like it'll be like, here's a Jiffy Lube, here's a Wiener Schnitzel, you know,
Okay,
that
is
kind
that
of thing.
bad?
So
is that bad? Like, you have
At-
access to the data you want. The company
At its-
is providing you a service, and
at its current level, maybe not, but that's not something that anybody has control over. If Google decides to make those ads more intrusive or restrict the access to them in the future because you need to click through an ad, like, that's their prerogative and you can't do anything about it.
yeah.
and that offers an opportunity for someone else to come in and do something else that doesn't piss people off. But there's no incentive when you do that in the government, none whatsoever. And so if they do something that pisses you off, tough luck. You're out of luck. Whereas
Well,
with
the government's not
actual
going to be
competition-
advertising for Jiffy Lube.
I mean, who knows what maybe they won't even offer the service. Maybe the service will have bad data. We don't know. We can play this what if game all day, but chances are you're already using services like this through Google Mail, through traffic, there are so many different things you're using. And you're right, you're being presented with ads and there's a back end thing so that they can make money. There's nothing wrong with that. Like,
And
this is what makes
all
the
of my
world go round.
all of my data is feeding an AI large language model.
Yeah.
But there's a cost to it. Nothing is free. There's a cost
Of
to it.
course. You're right. Nothing is free. Even in a socialist environment, nothing is free. There's always a price for everything, whether you like it or not. And we can't sit here and go, oh, there's no cost. Everything should always be free. There's always a cost. You are always paying for it somehow.
That's not what I'm
Even if
suggesting.
government does it.
Yeah, absolutely. To have a society, there is a cost to it. And I think what a lot of people are trying to get out of is paying that cost to have a society. And by privatizing, you unburden that cost from government. But that doesn't necessarily work the way that you think it does. That money just floats around in different ways. It doesn't get rid of that cost.
Sure.
Maybe you're not paying it directly with your taxes, but you're paying it in other ways.
But by putting it in government, we've lost incentive for improvement. We've lost that moment. Like this commercial, people love SpaceX, right? You may not like the owner, but generally speaking, I think most people here can agree what they've done for the industry is amazing. Regardless of politics,
yes.
Right?
I will agree that is our reality, but I would argue that it doesn't have to be our future. And good governance and good moderation of the things that we're saying we want to unload the private sector could be more useful than what the private sector can do, and that cost would be more direct and transparent as opposed to being the product ourselves.
But that doesn't work in reality.
It
right?
hasn't yet.
Right. So you're right. So throughout all of history, that model hasn't worked. This model will work. Come on. All right.
Well,
I'll let someone else get the last word in, and then we're gonna move on.
I'll say it doesn't work until you finally figure out that it does.
That's fair.
Right?
Landing a rocket's not possible.
I was just about to say, the landing rockets was BS 11 years ago. Like nobody's done it. Shut up. It's not worth it.
I think when it comes to government, there's a human. I was going to give you the last word, and now I'm not. I think
you were never going to give Jared the last word.
Nobody gets the last word except for Jamie. So
it's my show. I get the last word.
I was also going to throw in about weather and other things like that, but see, we're not going to discuss that.
Actually, on that note, I think we'll generally, let me just go to some viewer comments. Ika says, yes, access to data is extremely important.
Yeah.
Tiger Pilot says, farming today is hugely dependent on high tech. Yes, but high tech and aerospace, while adjacent, are different, right? So, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And certainly they're using GPS and they're using a whole bunch of stuff from space. No?
Those are the same thing.
I think they are adjacent. I don't think they are the same. Oh, we'll come back to that. You know what? Hang on. Sack, add that into notes for After Dark. I think that's going to be an interesting debate. Ika also says this will have a negative impact on farmers. They're going to lose access to raw weather data.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're stuck in Leo.
And the inability to compare apples to apples, because if you get one private company A, and they format their messages like this, and private company B, and they format their messages like that, you can't necessarily compare them. And so where you have overlaps of data, and there's a hole here that this one picks up, you're not necessarily comparing apples to apples, and that could give you a bad outcome of your analysis of their data, because it's in different formats.
If the farmer doesn't want to farm apples, they can farm anything they like.
Yeah, but every time I have to farm in meters versus miles or acres,
it's off the rails. It's off the rails.
Yeah.
Also, I want to point out, I allotted 6 minutes to this segment, and I know you guys can't really see. So anyone who's on suborbital, you can see our rundown. My rundown is literally blinking at me on how far over time we are on this segment. We are literally 10 minutes over time. It was a great segment. I think it's a really interesting debate, and let's continue this in After Dark.
Yes.
But I do want to move on into the next section, which is if you thought it was bad for science, oh, just you wait until we talk about STEM engagement. 100% reduction on STEM engagement. Here's how Jared defended that.
God.
What do you say to young students who are thrilled about Artemis II and ask about participating in a space grant internship program like Christina Cook did, or to the next human exploration rover student who would want to pursue this kind of activity? They will be zeroed out. Their future will be zeroed out.
I appreciate the question, Congresswoman, and certainly very proud of Christina and her accomplishments on the Artemis II mission, which was outright historic, and great appreciation for the schools in North Carolina. In fact, I myself spent time at Duke for flight physiology before going to space. I would just say, ma'am, that the OSTEM budget does not encompass all of the grants or internships. In fact, through other divisions within NASA, our pathway internship programs, for example, we issue hundreds of internships every year independent of STEM, independent of the OSTEM office, and we also put out hundreds of millions of dollars in grants outside of OSTEM as well. So I agree with you that we do need to bridge the gap at times from just the pure inspiration the missions provide to get students hands-on at times. The grant program does that, and certainly our internship program do it. It's just not exclusive to OSTEM.
Okay. So is Grant wrong? Like, do we need an entire STEM engagement program? Excuse me. Let me cite this example. I think the best science outreach NASA has ever done had nothing to do with their STEM engagement program. Artemis II. How many people were engaged and excited and wanted to learn rockets? And it was a big, bold, epic mission. Do we need a dedicated STEM engagement program inside of NASA? Or do we need NASA to execute on big, bold plans very publicly to engage in STEM? Jared?
Well, if you're going to throw it at me, you got to understand that I've got I just have to publicly say I have a tremendous bias here because I am someone who works at two different places that work with NASA's Office of Education. And to lose that would be a massive resource of ours gone. You know, the way that we're able to directly access NASA frequently is through that. The way that we're able to get grant funding for programs and other things is through that. So it is a unspoken and unsung force multiplier in the United States for being able to inspire and enable people who are not just necessarily interested in STEM, but people who may have a passing interest in this thing. Like, yeah, I think rockets are cool. So does that necessarily mean that you're going to have a career path that leads to that? It doesn't, because obviously these are very difficult things to do. There's a very big difference between teaching it and then deciding, yes, I'm going to put in the academic effort to do this, and then deciding that I'm going to put in my life effort to put a career into this. But you can't have an end result without a start. And yes, there are other, Administrator Issacman noted that there are other programs out there to do these kinds of things, but at the same time, it was very much I think someone in the chat room said it, where it felt very much like an answer that was like we're losing this, but hey, we got something that's sort of a little bit like it that's still going to be around, even though we're going to lose this. So, man, it's just so difficult. Like, it's difficult for me to take a group or an agency that requires so much education in your background to then say that we're not going to put a small amount of effort back into attempting to guarantee continuity in our workforce. I always admire companies that look at the people who work for them and say, you want to go get your master's degree? We'll pay for it. Like, that to me is a company that says that they're investing in their future and that they actually care about that person and they actually care about the product that they're making, that they want it to be better. That's what I get from the Office of Education at NASA, which is that it is very much like let's go out there, let's get that next generation built up and ready to go. And if they come to NASA, great. We have that is an investment that we put into that, and that investment's now paying off because we have a portion of our workforce here that was brought in by what we did. However, if they go into the industry, that's great too, because NASA works with the aerospace industry in the United States and around the world. So it's important to be able to enable that and to feed into what you want to work with, because you rely on it. So it's a bit disheartening it's a bit disheartening to see a zeroing of that budget, especially when it is something that is not much in the general scheme of things. And I really hope that Congress will decide to reverse that, which so far through the House appropriations, it has not. But in about 2 weeks, the United States Senate, who kind of has the final say in it, is going to take that up. And I may or may not have already contacted my 2 senators in my state, asking them to please consider restoring the funding for that.
That is a really good point, which is this is the White House's budget request, but the White House does not control the purse in the United States. That's
No.
Congress. So while the White House can say, hey, this is what we'd like to do with NASA, they don't actually get to choose. Congress gets to choose, and Congress can choose to continue to fund the STEM outreach program at NASA. And in fact, this happened last time. This is not new.
And preliminarily, so far with the House budget, they basically have said no. We're keeping the budget flat at what it was. Your reduction is not we are not taking that up. But there were other areas that have been reduced. But we can also we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Well, flat is a reduction because of inflation.
True.
To answer your question, Jamie, yes, you need both. You need the big active things, the cool things, the fire, the smoke, the live broadcasts of people floating in space. But you need to come along behind that with a dustpan and collect all those brilliant young minds that don't know that they're brilliant scientists and engineers. And you need to show them that there is a path and help them find their way into the proper education and the proper avenues to be able to get the help they need to discover how they can contribute in order to be able to continually feed brilliant engineers and scientists into that workflow. Everybody that's currently working will retire, will die, will pass on, will decide that they can't any longer support the wills of their company or whatever. And if you don't have fresh meat, as it were, to be able to continually feed that, then we're going to fall by the wayside. So if you don't start developing those minds early, like you're not gonna get, you're the brilliant engineer that wants to grow up and design a spaceship to go to Mars doesn't just happen out of college. That starts earlier on, and being able to collect these people as they're inspired and meet them where they are and help them find their pathway to doing what they want to do is the only way to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, as a 7-year-old, going to the open house at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory was an absolutely mind-blowing experience, and like core and formative to the person that I am today. Like if I had not been there and I hadn't seen that big airbag system that they had on display, because this was a whole new way we were going to land on Mars. That has stuck with me since then, and it got me excited about space and has kept me on this path. So, I mean, I got one right here. So,
I mean, I am all for private sector, as I've mentioned many times in the show. I think you all know that about me by now, but I do actually think that the government does have a role, and this is one of those areas where I do actually think they have a role. If you want to help make a change or make a difference, a great resource, as Aravel points out in our chat room, is the Planetary Society. They actually go and they push Congress to reject changes like this, and they do push STEM. And you can help the planetary. Again, this is where I think a combination of public-private, right? So like you can go, and if this is something that's important to you and you want to help push that forward, go over to the Planetary Society and you can help fund them, and they will go on your behalf and push for STEM programs and STEM in aerospace and all of it inside of our government. I think it's actually very good and very cool.
This is why tech companies and aerospace companies do internships.
Yep.
Yeah.
You take somebody that's got this fresh little bit of curiosity and education, and you give them a challenge, and you support them and help them grow and help them understand the kinds of things that they can do with a little bit of help, and the kinds of things that engineering can help them do. And then they at the end of that term, you sometimes they're good enough that you want to keep them on, and sometimes they discover that that's not what they want, and they do another internship elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the work you could do with $143 million at NASA. That's like a small class discovery mission, and distributing that to as many people as you can. Like that's holy moly. Like that's a big gap. That's a big hole that you've now punched into the aerospace industry of the United States. So it's a lot. It's a lot of ideas that don't get funded. That's a lot of new things that may not work. That's a lot of things that if they don't work, we're not going to find out about that they don't work until we try it in the future, and then it doesn't work. So again, this is science, the stuff that works is fantastic, but also it's just as important to find out what doesn't work as well. So, and like that, getting a grant to do a no strings attached kind of thing, like you get through that, man, those are makers and breakers of ideas that end up influencing things far down the line.
Also, before we move on, I want to thank Dave Avery for 10 gifted memberships on the channel. That is fantastic. So those 10 people who got a gifted membership will now have access to After Dark when the show concludes, as well as Aravel, who gifted a membership as well. So thank you both very much for helping to contribute to the show, because we are also crowdfunded. We do not get government funding, so it helps keep the show on the air. All right, let's move on. We talked a little bit about this before, which was deep cuts into science missions and privatizing that. Administrator Issacman was challenged to those deep cuts in the science mission, and his solution was optimization by way of private space, using AI and mission optimization itself. Here's what he had to say.
But over 75% of the NASA workforce is contractors. These are not part-time subject matter experts that help.
The administration's budget request abandons meaningful pursuit of future science flagships after the Roman Space Telescope launches this fall across any space or earth science discipline. That is a bleak vision of U.S. space science, and it is in direct contradiction of the National Academy's decadal surveys of NASA's authorizing statutes. You yourself said at your first Senate Commerce confirmation hearing that the agency could and should have multiple flagship science missions at once. Why now is the Trump administration abandoning flagship science missions? How will you maintain a balanced mission portfolio without them? And have you consulted with the national academies on this topic?
So thank you for the question, Congresswoman. I'm going to have to challenge myself to be as concise as I can because I love the subject, and I wholeheartedly believe we need more flagship science missions. In fact, as much as I would say it's good to be balanced, the reality is now as commercial industry evolves and we have more standard bus architecture that's more affordable, more constellations, we actually probably can undertake a lot more affordable of the lower end of the spectrum science missions, freeing up resources to do more flagship. I'm fully in support of that. The decadal process is extremely useful. I would love to recalibrate the timeframes down because I actually think taking advantage of a very mature launch market right now, AI tools, we can actually gather the data and formulate positions on what should be subsequent missions a lot faster than the current process it is itself. So my feeling on this, with respect to the budget, is as we evaluate in-formulation missions that can be extremely costly. We spent $200 million last year on an in-formulation mission that was canceled by the previous administration. So I don't always think those are the best use of dollars. We could free up resources to undertake more decadal recommended flagship missions. And that is something I would like to be driving in that direction as much as possible. And there is another one coming after Nancy Grace. Of course, Dragonfly is very much a flagship mission set to launch in 2028.
Yeah, so, this is it's clearly a theme that we're getting, which is, privatize, do it faster, cheaper, better. I have a hard time arguing with privatizing, doing it faster, better, cheaper, right? Like using modern tools to make these missions cost less and run faster. I personally don't see issues with this. I know I'm not necessarily in the majority in this particular room on that viewpoint. How am I the most right-leaning person in this panel? I don't understand. Hey, whatever. But maybe NASA can run better, cheaper, faster. Maybe they can use AI, and maybe they can use some of these tools modern day tools to streamline these programs so you don't have to spend as much. Or is there just no hope of that? Jared, I'll start with you wait, did we start with you last time? I think we did.
Yeah.
We'll start with you and then we'll go to war. It'll be great.
One of my fears is because private companies have shareholders typically to satisfy, the cost is usually greater than moderate profits or modest profits and executing the thing on time and on budget. And one of the modus operandi of this administration has been to privatize whatever service and then break it and show that it doesn't work and show why it needs to be defunded. So it is a slippery slope to me to privatize too much. And that's one of the things I'm worried about in this respect.
I do think that's fair. I think there's a balancing act. I don't think absolutely everything should be privatized, right? Like,
but who manages
roads
that?
are a good example. No one likes a toll road, right? Like, I'm spending my tax money on roads. Why are the roads not free? And why are they so awful?
Sure.
Texas has entered the chat.
Now commute from Riverside to LA without a toll road.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, like these are things that should not be privatized, right?
We
Like,
used to have we used
Yeah.
to have carpool lanes, and then they privatized them, and now you have to pay.
Yeah, and they're not any. By the way, they're not any better. I just want to point that out.
They're not any better, and you're paying $23 during high traffic times in order to be able to take a 16-mile trip in the fast lane.
And also sometimes it doesn't work as well. Like the 110 here in Los Angeles, they put toll roads on. They changed the carpool lanes to toll roads, and then it actually it slowed down commute times overall by like 20%, like a huge amount. So everybody.
I am actually an advocate for services that make sense. So making sure, and I'm not sure that our government is doing this correctly, but like, I
would
think
argue they're not.
healthcare is something that I think we should take care of our fellow humans, right? Like, we should just be kind and keep people healthy. Healthcare is something that I think government should have some, like, you should be able to get free healthcare and then opt out, like pay for it if you want to. Like, we're not going to force you into our healthcare system. That's a whole big thing. Roads, transportation, things that serve the larger collective good. Space is a weird one. And this is why there's such a debate here, because, like, I don't know. I'm not sure it is one that shouldn't be mostly privatized. Joker1013 in the chat room said, because I was saying faster, better, cheaper, and they said pick one and only one. And if you were talking about government, you're absolutely correct. NASA can do it better or cheaper or faster, but they cannot do all three. They can't because they're government. They just can't. SpaceX did in fact do it faster, better, and cheaper. They did all three, and they're a private entity. By the way, Blue Origin did it better and cheaper. although, hold up, New Glenn, I would argue, is also faster than Space Launch System in many regards. Regards. So, like, when you look at private space, it is indeed faster, better, cheaper. And so I look at that as an example, and I go, you got to get over a certain hump. You have to have competition. And then when you do those things, you generally end up with a better solution long-term that lifts society as a whole, because we weren't forcing it into this like government thing. And that's why I'm kind of anti-government doing this stuff, because it can be faster, better, and cheaper.
But I think where your metric falls down is private industry is not about making things better for humanity. They're about making
SpaceX
a viable
is
product.
literally about making things better for humanity. That is part of their, it's in their founding. Okay, well, they are making things better for humanity.
That is a byproduct.
Sure, okay, cool.
It's not always a byproduct.
Okay, so what? There's nothing wrong with profit. There's nothing wrong with
there's nothing wrong with moderate profit. There's nothing wrong with reasonable profit.
There's nothing wrong with okay, put that in the After Dark notes. That topic too. We're gonna go to town on that one. That's gonna get the show.
Should we
really
also
the best part. We're still in segment 1. We haven't even made it to segment 2 yet.
That's fine.
We still have 2 quizzes to go.
This was going to be a spicy show today, and we knew it. So
yeah. I said I was on Discord last night, being like, I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, me too.
So I do want to clarify, right? We try to make the shows go about an hour long. I do always say, let the content dictate the length, right? So if the show doesn't have an hour's worth of content, then we go shorter. We're only in segment 1 right now. We haven't even gotten to segment 2. So this
who knew this topic was 6 hours long?
I know. Are my hosts okay to stay longer? Are we good for another? It's probably going to be another hour.
Yeah.
Your hosts are good to stay longer.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. All right.
I'm starting to regret not putting my name down for these segments though, because I weighted all of my segments towards the end of the show, so I'm just waiting patiently.
Throw your hat in.
That's all right. When we get there, I'll get up and take a walk and release my arthritic knee from throbbing pain.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll get up and go take a walk real quick, and we can let Ryan.
We'll all stand. We could all do like a little standing break during the trivia, which we're almost to. There's only one more question in segment 1.
Okay,
I promise
forward,
segment 1.
backwards, forward, stretch.
So we got a sneak preview of this particular clip. Oh my God, I've lost the room. We got a sneak preview of this clip a moment ago, but NASA contracts out. I actually did not know this. So I knew they did contractors. I didn't realize how much NASA contracts out. They contract out a majority of their workforce. The interesting bit is, like in mission control, Jared was saying, and I don't know if this is in his quote, but he basically said, like, there might be only one actual NASA civil servant and everyone else is a contractor, but you can't tell the difference because they all have the same NASA badge. So that's crazy. So should they continue to do that? He really wants to get rid of these contracts and bring a bunch of them in as civil servants. Here's what he had to say.
But over 75% of the NASA workforce is contractors. These are not part-time subject matter experts that help NASA and others. They show up to work every day, sit behind a desk with badges that look the same, and generally are being supplied by 3 or 4 contractors, $4.6 billion a year, and they're not doing it for free, sir. They're doing it because they charge a premium. Their value prop is workforce flexibility. And when I'm trying to figure out how to build rockets faster, launch rockets faster with greater frequency, do the engineering support for those rockets, and then control them on orbit at mission control, those should be core competencies at NASA. So bringing them in-house improves operational efficiency, and it saves money, sir. So I can do more science missions, so I can put more astronauts in space. And then the other part of the workforce initiative is bringing in subject matter experts from industry. NASA's not the only game in town. We got companies that can land rockets on ships. Bring them in for term-based appointments, 1, 2, 3 years, to grow the young talent inside NASA, and vice versa, provide opportunities for them to go to industry and learn as well.
Duh? I feel like no. How did it get to be this? I'm flabbergasted that so much of it is contracted out. Like, this makes all of the sense in the world to me. Does anyone else see downfalls here?
It does. There was a company I worked for a long time ago that intentionally kept about 10 to 15% of their workforce as contractors. And the reason that they mentioned was so that they could maintain consistent and regular employment for their full-time employees. And with the ebbs and flows of the market, they could fluctuate the size of their contractor force in order to be able to protect the employment of the people that were regularly there. And I think that's a good kind of way to operate. But one of the problems with NASA's budget and changing administrations and changing targets every 4 years and this and that is that you don't necessarily have that stability of the project or projects that people are working on. And so they migrated away from having direct employees into having these contractors that are kind of able to ebb and flow into different roles. But there's union protections. Contractors are typically more expensive. You're covering a greater overhead with another company on top of that. So they cost more. If we are able to provide that kind of stability to regular NASA employees, and like Jared said, keep the contractor force to the subject matter experts and bring them in as necessary, then I think that's a much smarter use of funds.
Yeah, as ECA 3189 says, and as you alluded to, the contract houses skim profits from every single one of the people that are employed under contract. And I think Jared mentioned it. I think it's costing NASA like $1 billion just in contract overhead for these contractors, as opposed to using civil servants.
I've worked as a contractor and an employee for the same company, and as a contractor, I made much more than the overhead that I cost to the company. So my total salary was even a premium on top of them covering overhead and insurance and things of that nature. So it multiply that by the entirety of NASA's workforce. That's a huge sum of money.
That brings up an interesting point, because that means that for NASA contractors potentially to become civil servants and work directly for NASA, they may have to take a pay cut. Because if they're getting a pay premium plus the contractor fee, and especially in today's economy, that may not be great. And that might not create
I think you could responsibly find a middle ground in that gap somewhere. But But there would be a choice to make too, because a lot of these contractors are part of unions, and they would lose that union protection unless NASA had a similar union to transfer to, and then you've got the terms and administration of that union that has to go on, and fees that would be due and things like that. I mean, it's not a easy problem to solve, but I think by bringing at least a portion of that contractor workforce on as direct employees, you could save a boatload of money.
I'm a little bit concerned. Dutta, are we agreeing?
It's possible.
Oh,
Tangentially on the fringes, yes, maybe.
There may be a hole in the space-time continuum. I'm a little bit worried. Arabale has a really good
Don't
point.
cross the streams.
The show has been going on
Alright.
for so long that the parallel universe has warped in upon itself.
It's all merging together. Arabale says, it's really interesting that for all the fears, Jared would essentially privatize NASA. He's doing the opposite when it comes to the workforce. Yeah, but like...
Square that circle for me. Go on.
No.
Go ahead.
I'll be over here.
Uh-huh.
Well, what I think it comes down to, realistically, is if I were in Jared's shoes, I would want everyone answering to me. Actually, I think we have another clip. Hang on, let me just really quickly look at my notes. Here's why I actually really truly think it makes sense to bring people on as civil servants, because when you're working in contractors, they may not all be the same contracting company, and that can create problems. Check out what Jared said.
The exploration ground systems, those that I need to depend on to build up the rocket and launch with cadence or to beat the Chinese back to the moon, it's entirely outsourced. And they talk to a different set of companies that we outsource the engineering work for that rocket to in another state and don't share schematics, which was a problem we were trying to solve in the weeks leading up to the launch of this rocket. So sir, I'm not trying to take the 45,000 contractors or so and make them all civil servants, but there are certain core competencies. People made decisions in years past to outsource to temp agencies. I think it's honestly, it's wasteful use of taxpayer resources, and it's coming at the expense of us being able to beat the Chinese back to the moon.
45,000 contractors that don't talk to each other, right? So, you know, he's getting heat for Artemis II because they're having the same issues as Artemis I. He needs to fix it, right? He comes from kind of, you know, he knows private space, right? He flew on SpaceX. He knows how SpaceX functions. He knows that if you go to SpaceX and you got a valve issue, that the person who designed the valve, the person who is working the valve, and the person who's can touch the valve are all right there in the room together, and they can just really quick to get to resolution. And now he comes to NASA, and they're like, "Hey, get me a schematic on this." And well, I don't know.
But that was the magic of Apollo, is they had contracting companies. They didn't have contracting employees. So if I needed a valve, I would go to valve company and get a valve because they are the experts at valve. And when I had a problem with them, I had somebody at valve company that I could talk to about it. And if I'm contracting to a company for the design of something, I'm not getting valve company. I'm getting a company that knows who valve company may or may not be. Like, you've got 3 or 4 walls down the road that you got to break into in order to be able to learn something about the hardware that's failing you.
By the way, I don't have a clip for this. It was just me listening to hours and hours of these. By the way, if you think this show is long, it's so many hours of testimony, so many hours, and I listened to all of it. At one point, and I apologize, I didn't pull this out, but at one point Jared talked about, they asked him, they're like, "Hey, what do you really need?" And he's like, "I need someone to build space valves. I need a company to just make aerospace grade valves." He's like, "We're a terrible customer because we need like 6. And we need crazy high tolerances, but I cannot find these valves." And I was like, I feel that in my bones. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to start a new company, Space Valves Inc., Spacely Sprockets, like NASA will be your first, they will pay you.
Valves are the new black.
Valves are so much more complex and complicated than you think they are.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Cryogenic valves? Yeah.
I actually worked with a company to design a valve for us. So we took one of their existing designs and tore it completely apart, and we put it back together with a bunch of different features and different arrangements, and it was a process of 9 months at least to get this one single valve to work and function correctly. And in order to facilitate this, we had to do a bunch of testing for them. Like, it was an insane project for one valve in order to be able to make one type of valve work. And then we ended up using like 900 of them.
I had a friend leading up to the Artemis II launch who was like, "What's so hard about valves? Like, how could it be
Oh my
that
God.
hard? It opens, it closes, it opens, it closes." And I was like, "Oh, like you mere mortal, let me bring you to this ethereal plane of existence with me and gaze upon wonders that will cause your
Yeah.
head to explode." Like, oh my god.
Let me introduce you to the word cryogenic.
Yes. You try opening it when one side is negative 396 and the other side is 103.
Yep.
Oh, and it still needs to seal.
Yeah, by the way,
Yeah, exactly.
you can't let the hydrogen atoms, or you can't let the hydrogen molecules through. Good
Molecule,
luck.
one
Molecule.
tiny little, the
Yeah.
smallest freaking thing. Yeah.
All right, I have great news, everyone.
Do you,
that was
do you
the
want
last...
a helium tight or hydrogen tight?
Writing that one down.
That's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
Writing that one down.
If you are an
That's a good
entrepreneur and you want NASA to be a client, make valves. They will buy all of your valves. That was basically the end of block one, with the exception of one thing we've got, and that is Ryan. Which one is the first trivia question?
I mean, it can be either. Which one do you think I should go for first?
I don't know.
Short one
You
or the
need to
long
tell
one?
me so we can start it, though.
Okay, I'll start this one.
Cool. All right. There you go. All right, you're all set.
Okay. This week, who launched more satellites from spaceports which are on the shores of the Atlantic Ocean? Was it Starlink or Amazon Leo?
Ooh.
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Always. Yeah, the music works. It's the quad box that's not working. So we can still play the music. We couldn't. We were in pre-show. We were running late, and I was like, I have to rebuild this macro, and so I didn't do it. I know you put Amazon Leo in there because you would want to think that it's Amazon Leo, because like, how could it not be Starlink? But they can carry so many more Starlink. Wait, who launched more satellites this week? Gotta be Starlink. It's gotta be Starlink. I vote Starlink. I know the chat room didn't vote Starlink,
Jamie,
but
it's
I
got
vote
to be
Starlink.
Starlink Higginbotham. That's your answer. Jared?
Oh, it's
I know
definitely Amazon Leo. Yeah.
Hang on. Here's how I know I'm wrong, because as soon as I have a wrong answer, he makes me lock in as fast as possible so I can't change my mind. Yeah.
Okay, so Jared you went Leo, right?
Yeah, Amazon.
Dutta?
Amazon. Otherwise,
Okay,
it
and
wouldn't
chat
be a
room has
quiz
gone-
question.
It's gone for Amazon as well. Yeah, Amazon is the correct answer. Well done, everyone. Apart from Jamie, who got it wrong.
Boo.
Yeah.
Somehow.
There were two Amazon Leo launches from spaceports on the shores of the Atlantic Ocean this week. One batch on an Atlas V, another batch on an Ariane 6. And there was just one Starlink launch, one singular Starlink launch from Florida. And there isn't going to be another one for, it feels like forever, a long time.
Yeah,
How many
Falcon's,
satellites
slowing down.
How many satellites did each launch?
So the Starlink from Florida was like 25 or 29 or something, and the Amazon Leo combined was 50, just over 50. There was 29 on the Atlas and 31 on the Ariane.
And what day of the week did the week start?
Monday.
No. Starts on Sunday.
No, it starts on Monday.
No.
How many
By the way,
how many satellites did SpaceX launch on Sunday?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, does the answer change if you moved it to Sunday?
Not from the Atlantic, right?
No one knows. All right.
No
moving on.
response. No
No
response.
response. That means I might be right. There's a world in which I might be right. Internet, help me. Internet, help me. What am I getting the internet if they can figure out how to make me right?
I don't think we have the telescope to see that world yet. So,
all right.
want a helium tight or hydrogen tight? That was a good one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was really good.
Just write that one down.
Yeah, the other one that I thought was really good in the first segment was when you said the STEM engagement office was a force multiplier. I was like, ooh, that's hard to argue with. That's hard to argue with, Jared. So I didn't bring it up if I was going to argue with you. All right. One of the things that they made very apparent through all of these, because there were two different hearings. One was science, and one was science appropriation, and another one was I forget. But they were basically the same hearing with different people. All about NASA's budget. And in both of these hearings, they made it very clear that we are in a brand new space race, one that may come down to months and not years.
We have a new space race. If they win, what's at stake?
I would say using the example I gave before, July 20th, 1969, when you pull off the near impossible, it sends a message to the world of what else is America capable of doing. And it gives everybody a bit of pause before they encroach on American interests across any of the most important technological domains. Well, I'll tell you, the inverse holds true as well, sir. 35 years of promising the American people we will return to the moon, $100 billion spent in that endeavor to come up short. It says something is broken. And I think that shockwave will be felt around the world if we come up short.
Yeah, so we've talked about being in a space race, at least on this show, for a hot minute now with China. Is it different? Are we actually in a space race here? Is this the slowest space race? Is this like two tortoises racing? Like, Ryan, do you think we're in a space? Ryan, I'm gonna go to you. I'm gonna go to you. Do you think we're in a space race with China?
I don't think so. Suddenly, there's a CIA agent at my door or something. No, I don't think so. I think that they're saying that there is a space race is an incredibly effective way of getting US politicians on board with giving more money to NASA. But if you look at the facts, China is executing space policy they set out in the 1990s. China isn't responding to what the US is doing right now. So if you want to say it's a race, it's an incredibly one-sided race because the US has been caught, behind, significantly behind, because China is executing on all of this space policy they set out 30 years ago, and the US has been, dilly-dallying about for the last 40 years in low Earth orbit, and they tried to spool things up with Constellation and then got rid of it, and then what do we do now? Okay, I guess we'll save the Space Launch System and then figure out what to do later. Like, US space policy has been atrocious compared to Chinese space policy. US space policy has not gotten people back to the moon, even though it's been called for, as Jared Issacman keeps on saying, by successive presidents for decades, right? You can't have a race if both competitors are not responding to each other. We have one competitor who's just plodding along, doing their own thing. Landing people on the moon for China is just a matter of national pride. They don't care what the Americans can get there first, the Americans can get there later. For China, it's a matter of national pride and putting themselves on the world stage. They're not going to win the space race. The space race was won in 1969 by the United States. This is, whether the US gets there again or not, for that achievement for China makes no difference whatsoever. The point of the US returning and its allies returning to the moon is not to beat China. The point of the Artemis program is for a sustainable presence to stay and not leave like we did during Apollo. They're two completely different goals.
So if I can push back ever so slightly on one thing you said, which was it's a way to get Congress to give NASA more money. NASA's asking Congress to give them less money. Legitimately, Congress is saying, we want to give you more money. We want you to keep the STEM program going. And NASA's like, nah, we don't want that. We're cool. So, I mean, maybe it's to
Is that NASA saying that, or is that the White House saying that? Because the White House and NASA are two very different things.
That's the White House.
It's NASA Administrator's Jared Issacman at the behest
who
of
is
the White
installed
House.
by the administration sitting in the White House.
Sure, but I mean, that's still the NASA administrator.
Jared Issacman doesn't respond to NASA. Jared Issacman responds to the President of the United States.
Yes. Yeah, don't forget that one.
I mean, just saying, he's the administrator. I'm just saying.
And he is
right,
he is beholden to his boss.
Aren't we all? Arvell has a really interesting comment, which is, I think we are in a space race with China. I'm not sure China is in a space race with us.
Yeah.
Which is diametrically opposed to comment from Seb, which is, yes, China has seen itself as part of the space race for years. They've said so repeatedly and have run corresponding PR campaigns in China. And to your point, Ryan, they've made it's not just a PR campaign, they've made it a part of their culture. There's extreme pride in China over their space program. And they've just been hacking away at this bit by bit, piece by piece. And to your point, we've been kind of floundering around. Oh, we're going to do Constellation. Well, no, we're not going to do Constellation. Oh, we're going to do...
Constellation is not the start of this floundering. I want to point out to everybody, the space exploration initiative, which was announced on the 20th anniversary of the Apollo 11 landing, July 20th, 1989. That is the start of the floundering. That's when it begins. This was an idea that we're gonna build Space Station Freedom. We're gonna go back to the moon to stay, and then we're gonna go to Mars after that. But the thing about the Space Exploration Initiative is that it wasn't sort of like a Kennedy idea where it was like, okay, we're gonna do this by the end of the decade. There was no we're gonna do a decadal plan to knock this out. The real big the Achilles heel of the Space Exploration Initiative was the fact that they said, instead of this 10-year block of time we're going to do it in, we're just going to it's going to happen as it happens. This is a long-term commitment. So, there's no way another presidential administration will come in and ruin this for us. So
never. No.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Not a thing. Doesn't happen.
I mean, for better or for worse, the Chinese government doesn't have that problem with changing administrations every 4 years.
No, they don't.
That's because they're in a long march.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Well, culturally not incorrect.
Speaking of just floundering and changing programs, Jared swapped out Artemis II. He's like, we're not doing that on the moon anymore. We're changing our mission. So he did it too. Changed Artemis III for an on-orbit test of the lunar landers. Probably a smart move. Talking about changing probably a smart move. But there is a catch.
The taxpayers are making a very big investment to both SpaceX and Blue Origin's human landing system capability. I would also appreciate that both those companies are investing well in excess of that as well for a capability that is so important to NASA, but honestly, national security, American competitiveness, because it's that capability that allows us not just to get back to the moon, but really build the moon base, sir. Put lots of mass efficiently and affordably on the surface, not to mention every other application that comes from a rocket that you don't have to throw away. So we're very grateful for that. I would say I've received responses from both vendors, both SpaceX and Blue Origin, to meet our needs for a late 2027 rendezvous docking and test the interoperability out of both landers in advance of a landing attempt in 2028.
So we are beholden. Let's be clear. The Artemis schedule is beholden to SpaceX and Blue Origin, both of whom are fantastic at timelines. They always, no sarcasm here whatsoever. They always meet their deadline right on. They're never years.
I mean, they're ready to go right now.
Yeah,
ready to.
It's the aerospace. It's the aerospace shuffle to the right.
Ryan, I think you've got a clip that shows exactly how ready they are to go. Yeah. You want to?
Yeah, I can tee this up. I mean, we've had brilliant progress from the. Well, first of all, I will say that the Blue Origin side of the equation, brilliant progress. The vehicle which their lander will be launching on currently grounded, and on the SpaceX side of the equation, the vehicle that their lander will be launching on, they've tried to static fire it a couple of times. They've successfully ignited the booster twice. Both times, both with 10 engines and 33 engines, they've actually had to cut short the static fire because the water deluge system wasn't powerful enough to protect the launch pad. The water deluge system wasn't pushing through enough power to protect the launch pad from their brand new booster. So they were running another test of the water deluge system last night, to try and dial this in, and they actually did conduct some suborbital flight testing.
Maybe. All right. By the way,
Oopsie.
I zoomed into it afterwards so you can see it better. Here you go.
Whoops.
Whoosh. Now here you go. Here you go. Here's the zoom in.
Now, how did Old Faithful get into Texas?
What is that? Is that a COPV? No, there wouldn't
That
be a
is not a COPV. What's
No, there
happened
wouldn't be
here
a
is
COPV.
the deluge system requires so much pressure, right, to push through all of that water into the space that is the deluge system and then out to protect the launch pad and the trench and all of that. It requires so much pressure that they have basically parts of rocket engines inside of the tank farm to generate that pressure. They're called gas generators. And one of them clearly wasn't happy because it exploded, and then the force from that explosion caused, like, basically the roof that sat on top of this gas generator popped off and flew into the sky. So you see a flash, which is the explosion of this gas generator, and then the protective covering is what flies off into the sky. Slightly concerning because the tank farm is meant to remain on the ground. It's the rocket which is meant to go into the air. But yeah, fingers crossed they can repair that quickly.
I mean, the tricky bit is it's easier. Ironically, it's easier to repair a rocket than it is the ground support equipment, right? Because the ground support equipment supports a bunch of different rockets. So if you've got a problem with a rocket, you can slide a different rocket in there. If you have a problem with the ground support equipment, everything.
You will not go to
stops.
space today.
You do not go to space today. Yeah, I consistently, and I know we talk about it a lot on the show. I know Elon's talked a lot about it, but I believe ground support equipment is consistently underrated in the extreme expense, complexity, and importance of every rocket launch. And so when you see stuff like that, you go, ooh, not great. Not great with regards to timelines. So
They shouldn't be using a gas generator with a non-compressible fluid, though.
I mean, okay. Probably right. Not my area of expertise, so I'll say yes. You know, I don't know if you guys caught this, but Jared did say late 2027 for that test.
Yep.
But earlier this year, he was quoting mid 2027. So already, just in language alone, we have slid from mid 2027 to late 2027 over the course of what, like 3 months?
Yep.
I don't remember when ignition was, but like 3-ish months, and we're already sliding timelines. So,
Yep.
yeah. How, like, you think we're going to make it?
I feel like there should be some accountability for that slide.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, part of it is the tricky bit is they don't get paid until they deliver, right? So there's incentive for them to deliver a working product because you have to deliver and it has to work. But also, you can only work so fast. So I don't know. You know, if neither SpaceX nor Blue can maintain schedule, like what does that mean for this space race? Well,
Right,
I mean,
but
assuming it is a space race.
A transparent program would have accountability for schedule delays.
I mean, that's on NASA. This is NASA's program.
Sure.
So NASA needs to be going back and saying, hey, this is, I mean, we're going to make it or we're not going to make it. And they will, right? The GAO does pretty good job of saying, hey, you know, this contractor can't, like, look at the Space Launch System, similar thing, right? They're like, yeah, no, not going to happen. I just don't know that the what is it? The Government Accountability
Government
Office?
Accountability Office.
Yeah. So, like, yeah. Okay, so let's just say that neither Blue, because they're about to launch their Blue Lander Mark 1, which is not the one that they're going to send up for space. That's the Mark II model, which is different. So, like, I'm not sure Blue's going to make it. Maybe. I don't know how far along they are. We just saw SpaceX blow the roof off of a building, so maybe they'll make it. But, like,
not the first time, won't be the last.
Kinda. So, are there realistic options outside of Blue, or I mean, can they blow the dust off of Altair and see if they can make that go? Like, looking real good about now. Isn't
Oh, bless Altair. Let me tell you.
When a
I mean,
rocket
it kind of all
fails,
circles back.
when a rocket fails, it's hardware-rich combustion. When ground support equipment fails, it's facility-rich combustion.
Ryan,
It
you were
all
saying-
circles back to the thing I was saying a few minutes ago about, you know, space race, are we in it or not? You know, China and the US are going back for two different reasons. The reason that the US has big rockets as lunar landers in Blue Moon Mark II and Starship HLS is because they're designed to go back sustainably and to stay, and not, if we were racing back to get there first, you would use a small lunar lander, you would use an Altair or an Apollo LEM, or as China is, their Lanyui lander. I mean, the reason we have these big landers is because the entire point of the Artemis program is different from the point of the Chinese space program and the point of the initial Apollo program, which was to beat the Soviets there. The point of having these big landers isn't to get there first, to get there in a rush, to get there in a hurry. The point of having these landers is to get there and never leave.
Sure, but there is an aggressive schedule on NASA side to do this in 2027 because they want to let's be clear. Let's just call it what it is. They want to land on the moon during Trump's term, right?
100%.
They want to land on the moon when Trump is still president, which means they need to do it in 2028. Well,
or in January of 2029. I mean, they've got until January 20th, 2029 at about noon to get the landing done.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what they're going for, right? So they're targeting 20, so they're doing super aggressive schedules. That it's not a race against China, it's a race against President Trump in his term, right? So that's what they're doing. And you're right, they want to have these big, huge, giant landers so that they can, do big, huge, cool, permanent moon bases. But they also just want to get this thing done. So is there an option or not really?
Are they gonna land him in the shape of his name or what?
Like the shape of his hair. They're all gonna be like golden landers in the shape of his like.
He puts his name on everything else.
All right.
I mean, Blue Moon Mark 1, they just Blue Origin released a picture this week of it doing the vibration testing, and I mean, that thing is covered in gold foil. So if you want to get support from the president, I think Jeff Bezos has definitely directed Blue Origin. Definitely not for thermal reasons at all. Gold foil is to get the president's support 100%, not sarcasm.
Clearly.
There's just no paint like it.
Yeah. Oh my God. He's not entirely wrong. Have you ever seen? We'll put that in After Dark. Gold paint. Put that in After Dark. All right. During ignition, it was going to be mid 2027. Now it's late 2027 for these tests. Also, during the ignition talk, I didn't really comprehend what the plan with that. In fact, I think we even talked about it on the show where I'm like, I don't actually understand what's happening in the Space Launch System past Artemis 5. It felt like they were moving to Starship because he kept saying two providers. And I assumed, it sounds like incorrectly, Starship and New Glenn, or maybe Starship and what's the one ULA makes, Vulcan, or something like that. That may not actually be the case.
We put out an RFI to industry for no less than 2 different pathways to launch American astronauts to the moon every 6 months. I have no doubt SLS is going to come in at one of them. My guess is it's going to come in at a lot lower cost because we're going to be able to alleviate those contractors from a lot of the burdens that NASA has probably put on them, and that's the feedback we received from them. So we're going to wind up probably having SLS as one of those vehicles at lower cost so we can launch it with greater frequency. And I have no doubt we're going to probably see a combination of another vehicle that's most likely going to use Orion because, to your point, sir, it's the only vehicle that's crew-rated that can bring astronauts back from those kind of velocities coming back from the moon.
Okay, before we get into that, I do want to say a comment from Arvale, which I think is hilarious, which is Houston, Trump Tranquility Base here. The Golden Eagle has landed. Well done, Arvale. So it sounds like he's wanting to take SLS out of the engineering and design, out of the hands of NASA, and move it purely over to its Boeing in Northrop. Right, Boeing and
ULA,
right?
and Airbus, and Lockheed Martin, and everyone that works on the ML.
Well, okay, hang on. So that's my fundamental question. So let's just say that it does move over to the you can't have 10 million people working on a rocket and expect it still to be a rocket, right? Like that's not going to work, right? So does one of these companies take it over? Does Boeing? Well, it's not going to be Boeing. They don't want to be in space anymore. Does Northrop Grumman go? Hey, we want the Space Launch System contract. We're going to buy everything from everyone else. Like, what does this look like to keep, assuming they want to keep Space Launch System going, what does this actually look like?
Are we going
Ryan.
It seems like a... Go ahead.
Are we going to see the return of the Omega rocket?
Only Ryan put his name on the rundown for that question. So we're going to Ryan.
Are we going to see the return of the Omega rocket? You know, just replace the the Boeing core stage with a Northrop core stage, and you get the Omega rocket.
Maybe. Right? Like, is that okay? I mean, or what? Who's going to take this thing? Or do you think it's going to be a combination of people? Like, what does this thing actually look? What does it take to make Space Launch System actually private?
We're gonna see it's gonna be a Falcon Heavy with a Centaur upper stage with Northrop Grumman boosters and a Blue Origin payload fairing and
oh god,
maybe there could be like a new UAA, like a I don't know what they call it, but another you know, companies coming together to birth a new company to build rockets. You know, ULA, you know, maybe not the best example of this potential future company, but maybe you could have Northrop coming together with Airbus and Lockheed, but you know, Airbus and Lockheed build the Orion spacecraft. You know, Northrop do the boosters. Boeing not very interested in space anymore, so maybe you could have them come together to birth a new company. They can come up with some sort of core stage replacement, maybe. But that's, I mean, maybe this is just me, but that doesn't seem realistic. Like, the reason SLS is because it was mandated to be so by Congress. And then, you know, the way that NASA works is it brings in all of these companies to make this thing. That isn't how you make a cheap rocket that you want that a commercial company can feasibly make for profit.
My problem with this is that whichever company you give this to, they're going to want to go through the design and manufacturing process for every single component and every single subassembly and every single assembly, and they're going to want to massage it and put their flavor on it, and that's going to take more time and more money, and it's constantly going to be in development. One of the things that the Apollo program did well was made requirements for all of the things that it needed and had commercial companies contribute to fulfilling those requirements. So you had Chrysler, you had GM, you had, you know, Playtex. They all played their part in making Apollo happen, and NASA was the coordinator to be able to make this impossible thing, this impossible mesh of mechanical components actually work. And giving that to somebody else without dictating that they can't change anything and have them, you know, build that up, okay, maybe, but like, who's going to take that on? That doesn't seem reasonable to me.
Yeah, it doesn't close in my head. I'm trying to picture what this looks like. And, yeah, you know, Zach from the chat room says UULA, which I assume means Ultra United Launch Alliance. I don't know.
But I mean, it would be like if you gave SpaceX's designs to Relativity.
Yeah.
And said, okay, build this rocket. No, Relativity is not going to build that rocket. They're going to make it fit their manufacturing. They've got ideas about how things are done, and they're, you know, going to try to take the lessons learned from every time SpaceX launch rocket blows up to try to improve it and make it more reliable and more sustainable and cost less money and be able to be built faster. And it's just not going to be the same thing anymore.
Is that bad? Like, I mean, if the advantage
why do we want to buy that lead time? Why do we want to buy that overhead?
I mean, okay, that's, I think, why he wants two, right? Because he wants a second provider. I'm just going to call it assured access to space because I've heard this conversation before, right? Everything old is new again, right? Like, we've been here before. And so it sounds like he wants two providers. I assume the first one is Starship. Maybe not. Maybe New Glenn. I have no idea. But that theoretically would be online by, I mean, it would have to be online before Artemis 5. If it's not online before Artemis 5, they don't have a lander, right? So you do that, and then I'm not sure, like, I think part of my gripe with NASA designing a rocket is I'm not sure they designed for manufacturability, whereas a rocket company would. And that's part of, in my opinion, where the slowdown for SLS is because they designed it to take as much money and time and parts as possible so they could keep the congressional districts busy. And that's not good. That's not good rocketry. And so, but again, I just, unless you give it, Ryan, you joked and said, give it to ULA. I don't actually, that is one of the only ones that kind of starts to make sense in my mind. You're going to have to get a conglomerate of sorts, UULA, to make this happen. And then they're all going to have to get along. And you know how well that's worked in the past. Right? So I don't know.
Yeah. But like if you buy an airline ticket from LAX to MCO, do you really care that much if it's an Airbus, a Boeing, or a Bombardier?
Yes, I always care. How dare you, sir?
You're pretty.
Don't you check what plane? Wait, hang on. Am I the quick? I almost want to do a trivia question. I don't want to belabor the show even more. But do you not, when booking a ticket, check what kind of aircraft it's on and then make a decision if you've got like two similar flights, which one to book based on the aircraft type? I do. Just, okay, 50-50. All right, 3. All right. So 100%.
Maybe a rental car is more akin.
All right. All right. We travel different, Dada. We just travel different.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Are you so concerned about whether your rental car is a Lexus or a Chevrolet?
No, that's okay. That's fair. I don't care. I'm going for, and actually, in fairness, I don't care if it's a Boeing or an Airbus. I care if it's like, am I going to choose the 7.5 or am I going to choose the A380? A380 every time, right?
Sure.
But I don't care if it's Boeing or Airbus, if that's your point. Yeah. But I do care about the type of vehicle. Absolutely. All right. Yeah, I don't know, man. This is gonna get, I think it's gonna get complicated and messy, and I don't actually understand what Jared's mental plan with Space Launch System is if NASA doesn't like force it. And I know he keeps saying that they're integrated with all of the, all the different manufacturers and like but I just, it doesn't close in my mind. I don't see, and I actually am not anti-Space Launch System. I'm not a huge fan of how expensive it is and how, it's a government built rocket. Like we got exactly what we got a government built rocket. That's exactly what you expect for a government built rocket, right? But it works right now, and I don't think we should give it up. I don't think we should have another shuttle where we give it up when we have nothing. And like I don't think we should give up our ability to get to the moon. And so I don't know that we need to keep the Space Launch System, but we need to make sure that I actually also agree with assured access to space. So if there's only one provider, just say it's only Starship, that's not good enough, right? Like, or Space Launch System. We need to make sure we've got multiple options so that we don't ever get into another shuttle or even Apollo scenario, right? We already did this twice. We already know it doesn't work. We already know there's a brain drain. Let's not do that again. So I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with. Just keep it. I know it's expensive, and it's not my favorite rocket, but like, maintain assured access to the moon. Oh, that's cool.
It's like the Top Gear episodes where the three hosts, they select their own cars, and if they can't keep them running, there's always that Volkswagen lurking in the background.
There was a sarcastic comment left by IIR for the win. Don't know how to say that, but get Chevrolet to do it. Actually, I kind of think, American automobile or automotive industry is kind of struggling. While aerospace has tolerances much higher than they're used to, and there are a lot of things that are different, there's a lot of stuff that's the same, like avionics packages, like the wiring packages in cars, manufacturing, you're bending, rolling metal, like you need to learn a few things, but I actually think the automotive industry could enter the aerospace and rocket industry with very little effort. Some effort, but very little effort. And I don't know, giving it to a company like Ford or Chevrolet might,
Rocket Factory Augsburg, they haven't launched anything yet, but part of the way their company, I don't know what the word for it is, but kind of their mentality is that the way they can cut costs is by outsourcing components from the automobile industry because they make them thousands of times per day for thousands upon thousands of cars really, really cheap. So why would you manufacture in-house this really specialized component when you can reuse an automotive component which will do the same job, but much cheaper than if you were to design it and build it in-house? I mean, that is already happening within that company as an example.
If I need a part to work 3 times, why does it need to be aerospace grade?
Automobile, yeah, 100%. I think
And
there's actually something there.
And you know, if anybody could make an airplane fly with one wing bigger than the other, like Scaled Composites is always looking for something to do.
You're not wrong. So it's not just a race to the moon. It appears like it might be also a race to the lunar South Pole. Maybe.
Yeah.
That was it. I'm cueing a clip.
There's no question. We
2.4.
are absolutely in a space race right now. You think of the moon, the surface area is about the size of Africa. Where we want to be and where the Chinese want to be, that's like a little bigger than the size of Washington, D.C. It has water ice there, which we're going to want to interact with and, again, master the skills to make propellant there on the moon when we're days away from home instead of when we're 9 months away on Mars, and we're going to have to do the same thing. So it's the perfect proving ground for us. The downside is we have a competitor. That's a good thing because it'll motivate us to put our resources where they need to be and focus. We just don't want to lose, sir.
Yeah. So, it sounds like it's a land grab, right? It's always about land. Who owns the land? Who gets there first? Mindsies, right? Plant the flag. And both the U.S. and China are targeting the lunar South Pole. Is there enough room for both the U.S. and China? The moon's big. Moon's big. Is there enough room for both of us, Ryan?
Washington, D.C. is quite big. So if he already said that it's bigger than Washington, D.C., then, I mean, depends on your scale of operations, but I don't see any reason why there isn't enough room. Like, you don't have to build the entire base. Let's just assume that the US has a base and China has a base. You don't have to build both of these bases within that region, right? This region is just where water ice is very, very, it's not very easy to collect. Much easier to collect than in other parts, on other parts of the moon, because that's where the permanently shadowed regions are. That's where it exists. So you just have to have access to that part of the moon. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to build the whole base there. I can see a future where if we're going to be like teenage girls and you need a little bit more room, you can build your base a little bit away from the place where the water ice is, and you can have a distribution. You can have a moon train to move the water ice back and forwards between where your base is and the place where it is most prevalent. We have distribution networks on Earth for that reason. Not everybody lives next to the cargo port where all of the produce comes in from overseas. Not everybody lives next to the farm where the food is grown, right? We have distribution networks on Earth for that reason. I'm not saying that something of that scale is going to be happening on Artemis 5, but going forwards, if there is a concern about having enough space for everybody on the South Pole, you can go further afield and just set up a distribution network. Obviously, it's not going to be that simple, but that is how things are going to have to work if you want to have a big base the size of a city with lights on the moon and whatnot.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't the U.S. going to fight NASA over the resources themselves? Not necessarily where the base is going, but they both want the water.
Did Ryan just, it's easy, you just?
Yes. It's very, I've done it in KSP. It's easy.
Oh, God.
I don't want to see war on the moon, but I do think that there is plenty of water to go around, at least initially, right?
Man, you just
Washington, D.C. is a big space.
You just teed up my next question brilliantly. Is like, could this start a galactic Cold War on the moon? And it's going to be for the resource. It's going to be for the water.
Cold War.
Cold water? Anyhow, Jared, what do you think? Is there a possibility of a galactic Cold War on the moon over water?
I would argue, are we not already in one? In terms of a galactic Cold War. So the United States is, with the Artemis Accords, is quickly grabbing its group of folks that it wants to work with. And China is very much looking at who the United States is deciding to take their ball and go home away from and saying, hey, you want to come and play with us? You want to come to the moon with us and make this happen? So it is looking already like the Cold War, where the United States would have its allies, and then the USSR would have its allies and do things together in the space environment. So it's teeing up for that. As to whether it's going to become a Cold War or a hot war at the poles of the moon, I think that's yet to be seen. I would certainly hope that it is neither cold nor hot, and that there just isn't. But then also geopolitically, it is a place where resources are slim, and resources are a reason for conflict in human history. So we'll have to see.
Let's close out. We talked in the first segment for the first, I think, 3 or 4 hours of the show about about the proposed budget. The back half, about the race to the moon, the race back, which I'm not opposed to. Having a meaningful, healthy competition is good. It's actually not bad. Healthy competition, just as long as it maintains that healthiness, doesn't turn into unhealthy competition. So I guess going around the room, start with Detta. Like, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on the budget? Which, again, not actually approved. This is the White House requested budget. Only Congress can approve the budget. The White House cannot actually enact anything that they talked about. Congress owns the purse. So what are your thoughts on the budget, the requested budget? What do you think is going to happen, and on the space race? Detta.
If the administration is serious about getting something done, put money where mouth is. Period.
Well, they're doing the opposite of that. Ryan?
There's a lot of show over here and not actually do what you say you're gonna do. Lower prices, energy prices, grocery prices, etc. No wars. So put up or shut up.
Ryan?
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, if more money to NASA is better, right? I think we can all agree with that. Yes, there is a balance that needs to be done, but if you want to actually make this happen, then proposing a $6 billion slash to take it from 24 billion to 18 billion, that is not going to help push for a landing within this presidential term. And I am 99% confident that we are going to see exactly what happened last year. The White House proposes a huge slash, the House puts most of it back, the Senate puts the rest back, and Congress puts a stamp on it, and then what gets enacted is going to be pretty much what we saw last year. Just like how last year was it was a cut, but it was pretty much what we saw the year before. And I think we're going to go through this all again next year, and then the year after that. big slash proposed, Congress then goes and puts it back.
Jared?
I'm obviously hopeful that NASA's budget will remain restored as the House has done. I am hopeful that the Senate will come in and do things like restore the Office of Education, and we'll see how the money gets shuffled around there. But obviously, funding NASA, you want to do all these amazing and cool things, and you want to beat China back to the moon, and you can't, no Buck Rogers. So you can't talk about doing all these incredible things and then go blow your budget on a war that you've got going on right now. Just a couple days ago, folks from the Pentagon testified that Operation Epic Fury has cost literally what is the proposal for NASA's budget so far. So you figure out what to do with the budget at that point. So actions express priorities. So I'm hopeful that the actions will come back to favor NASA as opposed to the proposals, which definitely did not appear to favor NASA in the initial round of budget proposal. So yeah,
and think about that for a second. That's 60 days.
Well, that's what the Pentagon said. So there are other people independent of
Yeah.
that who laughed at that and said, no, it's probably about twice that. So,
But like in 60 days, they spent
Yeah.
the entirety of NASA's requested budget for
Yep.
the year.
sure did.
Like we could
We
do
have more
so
stories.
much better.
Yeah, we have more stories on we'll talk about that in After Dark. I
Yeah.
do want to end on, I think, a positive note, which is I fundamentally agree with Ryan. I think the House and the Senate are going to put most, if not all, of this money back in. It'll be close, I think.
Yes.
And that means that both sides of the aisle, the Republicans and the Democrats, see the value in NASA and come together for space. Space is one of those things that unites everyone, and including even down to budget. And so while we may be disagreeing on budget and how we get from point A to point B, it's one of those things where even the politicians who are yelling and screaming at each other are like, no, you get more money. How cool is that? That's pretty amazing. I think that's pretty amazing. So I feel like we should just kind of end on that note and then give Ryan an opportunity to be wrong on a trivia question before we go into After Dark.
I wrote the question. It is factually impossible for me to be wrong. I'm always correct. That is the truth and the whole truth. Okay, let's do a question. I'll put it on the screen. That might help. There we go. SpaceX has retired. Just read the instructions from Falcon Operations to join which transport barge? Is it A, size isn't everything? B, you'll thank me later? C, clear air turbulence? Or D, I needed a fourth answer?
So I gotta tell you, I really want to pick sizes and everything, or I needed a fourth answer for the lols, right? Like, I know it isn't. I know it's not. But man, those are funny answers, Ryan. I'm not sure I can afford. I don't know if I can afford getting this one wrong though. So like, do I do it for the lols and get it wrong on purpose?
Are these all ships from the Foundation series?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I will answer that question when I get your answers to the question. Jamie, what one are you going to go with? Who knows?
I still can't decide. I'm gonna do it for the lulz, and I know it's the wrong answer. I know the right answer is you'll thank me later, but I'm going to instead choose for the lulz sizes and everything because it's freaking hilarious, Ryan. And I think not only am I going to choose the wrong answer, I think you deserve an extra point because these questions are hilarious.
Dutta?
You'll thank me later.
Jared?
You'll thank me later.
Oh, that's really surprising because that is exactly what the chat went with, and that is the correct answer.
Who knew?
The fourth one is not a real ship from the series, but the first three are real ships.
That's
Sizes
great.
and everything is such a fantastic, like, they'll never do that, but it's such a fantastic answer. Just someday, if they ever do, I get my point back.
Yeah.
All right. That's our show. Hang on, I gotta get my
I
script
still
back
want
here.
my USS sunk cost fallacy to be a ship at some point.
That's pretty great.
So.
Before we go into our before we go to
I
After
think we
Dark,
have several of those.
and thanking the crew. This Wednesday we do have our next interview, which is with Frank White, and Frank is the person who coined the term the overview effect. He's been an inspiration to astronauts, engineers, and humanity as a whole. Here's a quick sneak peek of that interview.
And I was looking out the window of the plane, and I had this insight or epiphany that if I lived on the moon, or if I lived in an O'Neill community at L5, Lagrange point, I would always see the Earth with an overview. I'd have an overview of the Earth. That was a word that came into my mind, and that I would understand the Earth to be a whole system, interconnected, interrelated, and I would experience the overview effect. What it is, it's both a cognitive and emotional shift that space travelers have, when they see the Earth from space and in space. But at the end of 1968, we had Apollo 8 and we had an Earthrise photo. And suddenly we saw the truth of our situation, which is we're on this organic spaceship. It is a new way of thinking, acting, behaving, and you don't need to be a rocket scientist to see that we need it. We need that new way. There are no passengers, we're all crew, but some of us aren't doing our job as crew. And this is just a whole new paradigm. That beautiful ball of light, that's all there is.
Now you'll be able to see Frank's interview available to everyone this Wednesday at May 6th. You cut away. Oh no, now I have to read this while I'm on camera. All right. But you don't, hang on, let me see how well I can do this. But you don't have to wait that long. The Project TMRO crew on both Patreon and YouTube have access right now to watch the entire thing. By the way, if you are part of the crew, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who helped to make this show happen. In addition to getting your name in the show, as well as early access to interviews, you also get exclusive content to things like After Dark, which is coming up next. We just turned Patreon back on, and we match the dollar amounts from YouTube. So if you prefer to contribute over there, by all means, whichever one you want, YouTube, Patreon, it's all active now. You'll see all of those names in the credits as well. While I was at it, I also tweaked the benefits a little bit, and now the crew at the suborbital level and above get access to the show rundown, which this week was pretty crazy. We'll talk about it a little bit in After Dark, which is coming up next. I love this AI bit because I think he's putting all his into motor oil. Right? Like, the AI just got... look how wrong this is, right? Like,
and those fingers get messed up.
And then the cigar, like, it's not placed in the tray, it's over the tray. And it's like all of the ashes are not getting dropped into the tray. It's like the AI just doesn't understand. It was hilarious.
Well, you asked a machine, what do you drink? And it gave you what it drank. Motor oil.
Also, the olives float.
Yeah. That's wrong.
We don't have do we have a leaderboard? Hang on. Wait, I think we do.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm winning. That's all I saw. All right, thank you everyone. I appreciate winning. I'm absolutely winning. I'm gonna, you know what? I gave myself an extra 100,000 points. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next week. All right. I know we're going to lose Travis here, so Travis, go do your thing. I appreciate you.
Arabelle says you really enjoyed this week's episode of Whose Line.
All right, hang on. What do I have? All right, so first off, so we're gonna, just so everyone knows, we're losing Travis. So for all social questions, do him as lower thirds. He's not gonna be able to cut to him. He might be able to come back later, but blah blah blah. You know where he works, and so he's got to do that. That's I know those feels in my bones. I just want to show everyone how badly I failed at this rundown. I'm gonna go over the time I allotted for each segment, and then the time we spent on each segment, because the rundown tells me these things. And I just want you to appreciate how comically off I was on all of these. So first off, we started late. So the first, the first 7 minutes, not my fault. All right, so then I allotted 6 minutes for block 1.1, We spent 12 minutes and 33 seconds there. So I was off by, 100%. I allotted 6 minutes for block 1.2. That was science and farmers. We spent 23 minutes in that block. Whoops. We were supposed to get to that block at 10:06 a.m. Pacific. We got to that block at 10:21. Oh man. The next block was supposed to be 6 minutes. It was 13 minutes. So again, we were supposed to get to that block at 10:12.
It was 14 minutes, 13:56.
It was 14. Okay, hush. Don't make it worse. You're rounding up. I'm rounding down without going over. Whatever. Anyhow, we were supposed to get to that block at 10:12 a.m. Pacific. We got to it at 10:44 and 54 seconds. So it was right around that time that I realized, uh-oh.
This is a show about space. You couldn't envision everything slipping to the right.
All I'm going to say is that the trivia sections both ran to time this week. Trivia 1 was 1.5 minutes.
Excellent.
Trivia 2 was a whopping 2 seconds long.
Yeah, we clearly didn't hit
That
the
was my
timers
fault.
on those trivia questions. Yeah. Anyhow, I think that was the most egregious one. However many long this here, 10 minutes. I was off by almost 100% of all of these, right? So like anything that was 6 minutes was basically 12 to 14. Anything that was 5 minutes was 10 minutes. Yeah, trivia 1 was supposed to be 3 minutes, was 98 seconds. That's fantastic.
New space race was good. 5 minutes versus 7.5.
Yeah, that wasn't bad. That was close. I would have been able to make if I was using this in an actual like launch time. So first off, this is what you use to like run a show, right? And you use your timings and your blocks to go, and you get something called over-unders. And the system will tell you like, hey, how bad are you? So for example, right now we are 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 52 seconds over. And so then as a producer, you go, oh, hey, I'm 7 seconds over. I need to get 7 seconds back. And so you just start, you clip out quick little lines here and there, and you kind of keep the timeline looking pretty good. And in rocket launches, you're marching to T0, right? So you're always like trying to, if this show was marching towards a T0 launch time, the rocket would have launched in block 1.3, and we would have still been talking about, it would have launched in block 1.2, and we would have been talking about whatever, and we would have missed the launch completely. Like, I would have had no way to make this time back up. Anyhow, I know it doesn't matter for a show like this, but again, the producer and me can't not look at the times and go, wow, did I fail? Wow, did I fail? All right, let's look at some of the notes. Oh, by the way, thank you very much, Sack, for making that all happen.
Members only. We're still alive from the first one.
Oh, hey, you're all getting. I forgot to hit the. Button. You all got a little bit of free after dark. Let me hit the. What do I have to do? I have to hit this button. You know what? You guys get the next. What are we gonna make it here? Nah, next 1 minute only. Ha. Anyone who is a YouTube member, it will continue to work. I don't have this working on Patreon just yet, so I apologize for Patreon members. I'll get that working for next week. I wasn't back in Orlando to make all those changes, but there'll be a few tweaks so that Patreon will be able to watch the show live with After Dark as well. Oh yeah, and then we timed. It reset the intro sequence for the show timed out wrong. Boo. I'm just waiting for this to end. Do we want to say anything in the next like 30 seconds?
Thanks.
Great. That was
Thanks
great.
for coming along on this long journey today.
It was amazing.
Yes, it was fun.
Boop boop. All right.
If you didn't like the show, your refund is available at the door.
Colton says I have to do a hidden there.